Welcome to today's live show where we bring entrepreneurial success stories to you by sharing mistakes, experiences to help you avoid and accelerate your growth. Together, we lift everyone up. Today, we feature Megan Anderson. For the past 20 years, Megan has been working alongside with other entrepreneurs, small business owners. When 2020 hit and her consulting business was forced into foreclosure, Megan took the opportunity to transform herself and her business into something new. Now, 2 years later, Megan runs a boutique podcast agency helping other entrepreneurs achieve their dreams of having a podcast, but more importantly, a stage for which they can share their authentic stories with the world. When she's not hosting her own podcast and producing for others, Megan's enjoy cooking, gardening, spending time with her two sons and three dogs, and traveling the world with her life partner. Hello, Megan. Happy Friday. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kent. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here. As you said, I'm not usually in this seat, so this is a treat for me to get to be the guest today rather than the host. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to share this chat with the world.
I am excited as well. The feelings are mutual. Where are you calling in from? Where are you at right now in the world?
So I'm in Colorado. I am, just a little south of Denver for those not familiar with Colorado, in a little town called Longmont.
Mm-hmm.
Right near the mountains, and I kind of grew up in this area. So this has always been home for me.
Colorado is a beautiful, beautiful state.
Yes, it is.
I'd love to take a trip out there. Now, everyone loves a success story, especially one that's packed with full of wisdom that they can benefit from, right? A wise man once said that if you want to, a smart man, you learn from your own mistakes. But a wise man, you learn from your own mistakes and others' mistakes. So in this show, we want to learn from your success and your own mistakes so that we can all be wise together.
Yes.
How about that?
Love that. Love that.
Let's take a walk down the memory lane a little bit here and share with us. Tell us, what were you doing prior to switching to entrepreneurship?
So I am blessed to have always worked in small businesses. I never had the corporate gig from the time I can remember, my early jobs in my late teens and my early 20s. Always worked with small businesses. In 2013, that's when I took that entrepreneurial leap from being an assistant. I was working for a financial advisor and a CPA. I had 3 jobs, and then I was working for a construction company. So I had 3 jobs as an administrative assistant, and I was finishing my bachelor's degree at the same time while having an infant child.
Oh my God.
So, and lots of stuff going on. That was almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my early 30s, so I had lots more energy than I do today. I can't imagine doing it now. But what happened was I really was just kind of looking at it. I think a lot of people do this, is they get tired of being, with ineffective bosses or watching people struggle and stumble. And you're like, I don't understand why you're making this so hard. I don't understand why you can't pay me more. And you just kind of take the leap and go, okay, I'm just going to take what I did for a job and turn it into a business. It is a way to do it. It is not one I would recommend because there's very little passion. So I took what I was doing, which was admin, and turned it into a business in 2013. And it was exactly that. It was virtual assistant and in-person assistant work. I called myself a professional temp, where it was like, hey, I have more skills than a temp agency temp because I've been doing it for so many years, and I'm just going to go out and do it on my own. I had a modicum of success, but I really actually hated it. I really didn't like continuing to be other people's assistants. So for myself, the big kind of thing was, it was just that desire to not have a boss anymore. I can remember from little, like 5, 6 years old, when it was my turn as the sibling to pick the game, I picked business, and I always wanted to be the CEO. Mm-hmm. And I sit there and, we had an old rotary phone. This is aging me. It was an old rotary phone and like all these papers, and we'd set up a pretend office and we'd do business. I have no idea what I thought business was back then, but I always wanted and had that desire to just do it by myself. Mm-hmm. And so when I got tired of being someone else's assistant, I was like, okay, I'm just going to take the leap. I'm going to do it on my own. And it is a way to do it. It, take skills and try and turn it into a business. Again, I think it's not the advice that I'm going to give here in a minute, but that was how I turned from being an employee into being my own boss.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like
Yeah.
5 business iterations ago. It's funny how it's not even close to what I do today.
Yeah.
But
5. It takes time, right? And it takes a lot of self realizations. I myself went through 4 businesses prior to this one.
yep.
And the key is not to give up
Yeah.
and to keep on going despite at all
Yep.
odds, like everything
Yep.
that's coming at you.
Yes.
So thanks for sharing that. And being your own boss it has its pro and cons, right?
Yep.
And the being your own boss, you have time freedom, especially nowadays with the online business, you have location freedom,
Yep.
and then of course the sky's the limit when it comes to financial freedom. If you really make it and you hit it big.
Yep.
What were any other catalysts that make you made the switch besides just wanting to be your own boss?
So what's interesting to me, and this one is sort of this one of those, I don't hesitate to say it, but people are like, oh, really? You're going to share this? At the time, and up
Mhm.
until 3 years ago, I was in an extremely violent marriage. And so
Mhm.
actually going to work was very hard for me because my personal life would get in the way of me actually keeping a job. Because there'd be times I had to stay home because, well, I couldn't go into work because my face wasn't human ready.
Mhm.
I had to stay. And I couldn't work remotely and things like that. And so while I look back and I'm like, that's kind of really sad. It isn't, because if I hadn't actually taken that leap, in all honesty, I never would have actually left the marriage. So it's one of those good, like, and as entrepreneurs, we have to recognize this. Whatever is going on in our personal life, good, bad, or otherwise, shows up in our business and professional lives. There
Yes,
is never, ever a separation. It's
that's right.
always a marriage. And so finding a way to be able to work and continue, because I was the breadwinner of the household, and continue being able to make money was a huge catalyst to be like, okay, I can actually still make the same amount of money, make more money actually
Mhm.
than I was making being an employee, and not have to use my sick days, use my vacation days, risk losing the job altogether because I kept having to call in because my personal life. And it may not be something as extreme in your personal life. I hope that whoever's listening doesn't have that extreme, but you may be taking care of an aging parent.
Yep.
You may have a child with special needs.
Yep.
You may be ADHD, and just paying attention and focusing on what other people want you to do is hard. All of those are personal reasons that are like, I'd probably just be better off doing this on my own and finding success as an entrepreneur rather than bucking up against somebody else's way
Mhm.
of doing things.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that, you know, having your own success and finding your own success and, business and life, they're intertwined. They're like one coin, but just two different sides. It's kind of like success and failure, right? You
Yep.
can't have one without the other. They're married together, whether you like it or not. So,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
we just have to find ways to harmonize the two
Yeah,
and propel forward with both of those, right?
it's true.
So thanks for sharing that. That's really enlightening and confirming
Yep.
a lot of my thought process as well. Now, they say there's no success without mistakes. So I'm pretty sure you probably experienced plenty, and same goes with myself, including
Mm-hmm.
probably plenty of other entrepreneurs out there. You've been riding this journey for over 20 years or so. What can you share in terms of mistakes to help other viewers avoid going down the same path?
So I would say the number one mistake, and I have talked to myself and thousands, I've had thousands of conversations with entrepreneurs, and the same mistake comes up again and again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Do not put the marketing cart before the client horse. Okay. You go out, you start a business. You've got a little tiny nest egg of money because you're like, okay, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to take the leap. I've got this much money and I've got 3 months. And then what happens? Some marketing person comes along and says, I've got the magic button. And you take all that money and spend it on them, and you have no business.
Mm-hmm.
The number one mistake that people make is not going out and just getting a client. Get over the fear of sales. I don't care if you did sales for a living before. Doing it for
Mm-hmm.
yourself is a scary thing. To look at someone and go, all right, Kent, here's what I do. And I know I can help you. And let's do this.
That's
And
right.
getting past the hiccup of this is the dollar. The undervaluing yourself is huge. That's another huge mistake, is saying, oh, I'm out here and I don't have enough experience. So, oh, someone normally charges, $2,500 a month to do what I do. So I'm going to come in and do $500. Whoop. That is the fast track to burnout. The fast track to burnout is not charging what the industry average is for your prices. If you are out there doing it and you're out there doing it on your own, charge the industry average. You don't need to say, oh, I don't have 15 years of experience. That's okay. Your ideal client doesn't need you to have 15 years of experience. And so I think that's one mistake that people make, is they think that they have to set up the business in all the businessy formats before they get the clients. Go get the client. Go make the sale. Someone said this to me once and I went, wow, I wish I'd done this 10 years ago. Challenge yourself to have more conversations. Fail, like fall. 90 conversations in 90 days. That's a single conversation a day about your business with a potential client. That sounds like, oh my gosh, I can't do. You're going to fail in the first 20, so get them out of the way.
Exactly. Wow. That's just like, just like with anything in life, right? But especially in business, the first thing they should focus on, like you said, is just get a sale out of the way and get a case study. Because the clients don't care how many years experience you have. They care if you solve my problem and you have proof for it. That's it, right? If 20, 30, 40, 50 failed calls, doesn't matter. One, like what is it, Grant Cardone or somebody says, every single fail leads you to closer to a yes, right? So you're right. Don't pour everything in marketing. Just find ways to get calls with your ideal clients. And there's two things that come out of that, actually, when you pointed out. If you fail, that is not failing. Actually, you get direct market feedback. That's huge. That's huge. You don't get that over running an ad or just doing online research on Google and all that. No, direct market feedback, because your market is never wrong. It's very invaluable. It's so valuable. And most young entrepreneurs skip that, and they're like, oh, it's too much work, or maybe they don't know a way to get in front of their ideal clients to have that conversation. So thanks for sharing that, Megan. That was huge. So what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs who just starting out, 1 to 3 years into it, and they might not be experiencing difficulty, but if you were to give them a piece of advice, what would that be?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give to any entrepreneur out there, but especially in the early years, is be open to learning in every opportunity. A failed sales call is a learning. Getting the opportunity to have a conversation with someone, who's in your industry, you can learn. Go to webinars, read books, spend time every day learning. And whether it's learning in the personal capacity, how to be a better human, how to show up, or it's learning in the professional capacity, here's how I use technology, here's how I could help. But spend time, and I say at least a half an hour every single day, learning something new. Because I watched this amazing TED Talk, and I don't remember who did it, but it was the two stages are learning and execution.
Yes.
And if we do this and we just have them and then we stay over here and learning, we never execute. But if we stay over in execution, we never learn. And so you really have to marry the two and turn them into a figure eight, and always be going back to, I learned and then I implemented. I learned and then I implemented. And never staying in one side or the other for too long. I think that's the best thing, because when you're closed off as an entrepreneur or as a human, you're better off as an employee, because there's always going to be something new that comes into your sphere of knowledge. And then you go, oh, oh, I could do that. Sometimes it's a single thing. I learn things from my podcast guests every day. They'll say one little tiny tip, and I'm like, nobody's ever said it that way. That is mind blowing to me. And it's one
Right.
little tip, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
learned today, so I know my audience is
Mhm.
learning. That type of being open to learning and not being shut in your ego and saying, I know it all.
Yeah.
It's the best thing you could do as an entrepreneur.
100%. Like learning and executing. Same thing, because what you learn is one thing, but when you execute it, you have hands on. Yeah, you get your hands dirty, you experience it. It's a whole different way. It's like talking about Paris versus going to Paris, right?
Yeah.
Two completely different experience.
Totally different experiences. Yep.
And like most new entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs, they're like, Megan, I don't have time. How do you carve into time to learn? Because I'm neck deep with all these responsibilities and so many different angles hitting me up. And I just overwhelmed. I'm just overwhelmed. So what is that strategy that you use to, continually learning? I know I have my own, but I'd like to hear from you. You have your own.
Yeah, I really do. And my biggest key to people is, we'll call it self-care, because learning is part of self-care, whether, whatever that is. If you're a morning person, your self-care, your learning, your self-education, your journaling, your meditation, that should happen first thing in the morning.
Yes.
If you're a midday person, that should happen at noon. If you're a night owl, that should happen at night. Always pick the time of day that you have the most energy and give it to yourself first.
Yeah.
Fill your own cup, fill your own energy. Take that. I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning and feed my dogs. And then it's me time and my partner time and communication and journaling and meditation. And you don't make time. I mean, how do I say this? Time is yours to do whatever the heck you want with, especially as an entrepreneur. So the idea that you're overwhelmed and always busy, it's because you're not taking the time to go, this is mine. I'm setting up a boundary around this time and nobody gets it.
Yeah. So, for my experience, that is so true. And I would like take it one more further from a tactical standpoint.
Sure.
Because like what's not scheduled is not done. Like what's not written is done. You know what I mean?
Say that. Yep.
So what I do with your strategy, I do the exact same thing in the morning. I carved out 20 minutes to read, or 25 minutes to read, 25 minutes to meditate, after 10, 15 minutes to exercise. So like it's that me time. If you schedule it in, you get it done.
Yep.
And you feel good about filling your own cup, right? Then you can go fill other people's cup, because when yours is full, you're coming from a place of abundance.
Yep.
And that is
key. Scheduling with yourself,
yes,
and honoring it is huge. I had a podcast guest one time say, hey, guess what? There's this thing called lunch. You can actually schedule lunch for yourself as an entrepreneur, because when we carve time out on our calendar and honor it, your clients don't know if they say, hey, Megan, I would really like to meet with you at 6 o'clock in the morning. No, that's my time.
That's right.
But by 7 o'clock, I'm ready to go. Does 7 work for you? Your clients or your potential clients are never going to look at you and go, no, you have to put me first. If they do, they're not your client.
Yeah.
That putting it on the calendar is huge, because and even people who are like, I'm not calendar driven, I don't do it. I challenge you, try it for 30 days and see how much more time you have for yourself in your schedule.
Yeah, it changes. It changed the whole entire game for me since I put it on my calendar. And it not only that, our mind is a monkey brain, right? It just jumped from a million different thoughts a day, right? So we easily can forget the task that we were supposed to do, and next thing you know, social media, kids, husband or wife, and it's like, but then you schedule it in as me time in the morning, and that's it. You just do that, and you get out of the way, and you feel so good. It's like coming out of the gym, right?
Yep.
Going in, but like you come out, you feel so good.
So good. Yep.
And that's conquer the world.
And that's why I tell people, a lot of the gurus out there will say, do it first thing in the morning. If you're not a morning person, do it at 10 o'clock at night. Do it when you personally have all that energy and are ready to just give to yourself. Do it You get to pick that time. It doesn't have to be what everyone else says to do. It's your time.
Yes, yes. Honor it, your
Yes.
time. I like that.
Yes.
Now, finally, Megan, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your great insights on how to accelerate your growth as an entrepreneur, as a new business owner. What kind of services are you offering right now at the moment, and how do people find you?
So right now I run, as you mentioned earlier, I run a boutique podcasting agency. What that looks like for people, I have 3 ways I work. Consulting. If you just need someone to tell you what to do, when to do it, hey, that's okay. Whether you're getting started or are like experienced and just need some next steps, I consult with people on their podcasting experience. Collaboration. I do host my own podcast. It is called Flow Working the Entrepreneurs Podcast. Anybody who's listening to this is welcome to be a guest on my show. If you're an entrepreneur, it's a show for you. However, I do have people who are regular contributors. So that's another way you can work with me, is to regularly be on my show. If you want the podcast experience but aren't quite ready to go the full bore, then obviously we do go ground up, creating podcast experiences for your audience, your unique take on it, you know, and opening. My biggest thing that I help people do is understand what a podcast is. It is not the original definition. We've gotten into video, we've gotten into audio, we get into, you know, is it a 5-minute podcast? Is it an hour-long podcast? How, you know, there's so many ways that podcasting actually shows up. And what I love about it is it's actually for an entrepreneur, it's the long game. If you want to showcase your expertise in more than the flash in the pan TikTok, but you really want that depth and breadth, podcast is an amazing way to show your potential clients, hey, get all this stuff from me for free, see my expertise, get a face-to-face with me, learn who I am, see my personality in video, hear me, you know, while you're working out. And then they come to you ready to rock and roll because they're pre-sold, because they've already experienced all of what you do. That's really how I work with people right now. Is they can, again, anyone's welcome to come be a guest on my personal podcast. Or if you just want to get started, you're like, I really, really want a podcast and I've got no idea what to do. Conversations are always free to get started with me. So podcasting is my world.
Thank you, Megan. I'm so blessed and grateful that you are being on this live show with me and sharing your gifts with the world. And I think so many business owners out there, entrepreneurs out there would tremendously benefit from what you're doing. So
well, I
you.
appreciate you creating the space for me to show up and share my thoughts with your audience as well. It's always fun to get to be in this hot seat and answering some questions myself.
It's always great to share your success story, the wisdom that you've gained for your own mistakes, so that we can help others avoid those pitfalls and mistakes that we made our own, and then together we can elevate one another, right, and make this world a better place. So
I agree.
This is what we all here for. So thank you, Megan. I appreciate you and your time. Have a lovely Friday and enjoy the 4th.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Awesome.